In a matter of seconds, Maria Dumois' perfect life was shattered. Not only did she have to bury her husband, but 2 of her boys.
I just can't really think of what would make a person do that to children.
Her life wasn't the only one which would never be the same.
There's an accident and there's a boat on fire.
The accident caught the attention of retired Colonel Robert Matsky across the street, whose wife called 911.
Is the boat in the water? I have no idea. My husband just yelled to me to call the police.
He sees a guy get out of the car, grab a bicycle out of the back of the boat, and, head over to the foodway. And so he follows him.
Shoppers outside the foodway say the 2 spoke briefly, including this woman who, despite 30 years, still asks us to protect her identity and describes what the killer did next.
He reached for the gun and turned around, and the guy saw him and he took off. And the guy shot him right in the back of the head. I hollered, "Oh my God, he shot him." He finished putting the bike in the car, closed it, and took off.
The stranger escaped in a car he had parked at the foodway. Robert Matsky's daughter, Luann, and her brother and sister were all in shock when they heard the news.
My sister-in-law was sitting in a chair, and she just said, "Your dad's gone." And I remember in disbelief thinking, how did this happen?
Matsky was the shooter's 4th victim. He died from a single bullet to the head at the age of 60.
My dad was here at one moment and then gone.
People swarmed both crime scenes as detectives collected fingerprints, bullet fragments, and varying descriptions of the suspect from more than a dozen eyewitnesses.
He was slender and white, but his hair was curly and close to his head and just average looking.
This sketch was considered the most accurate and put the suspect's age between 30 and 35 years old. There were varying descriptions of the getaway vehicle, too, describing it as either a brown Chrysler Cordoba or Ford LTD. And one of the key eyewitnesses was passenger Raymond Barrows. He survived with a bullet lodged in his neck.
Had you ever seen this man on the bicycle before?
Never saw him before.
He had a hard time, and yeah, he went into like a depression, his wife told me. He wouldn't sleep well.
Who would want to kill Mr. Dumois and Barrows and the rest of the family? And so that was, I think, one of the most difficult parts is trying to figure out why somebody would want to do that.
I cannot think of any reason that anybody would want to have my father or my uncle killed.
Detectives from Holmes Beach, the Manatee County Sheriff's Department, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement all struggled to find a motive. So they dug into the backgrounds of Ray Barrows and Dr. Dumois.
They went through all the records, all the patient's records, and there was not a single thing in the files that would indicate that there was anyone that had a complaint against Dr. Dumois or anyone that had any hard feelings toward him.
Former Tampa Police Detective Jerry Feltman assisted in the case, and his wife worked in the doctor's office.
It was extremely sad. It was devastating. I couldn't understand why anybody would kill children.
Dr. Dumois' Cuban heritage also came into question, and any political affiliation he may have had with the anti-Castro movement. But law enforcement never found anything that made them think Dumois wasn't a devoted father and good family man.
There was very, very little information known about the motive, about who was responsible, and why it happened.
Investigators then turned their attention to Raymond Barrows.
Dad was a hardworking person that was always out of the house at 7 in the morning and back right around 6 o'clock, and he worked as a bell captain at the Key Biscayne Hotel for the majority of my young and adolescent life.
The Art Deco Hotel in Miami hosted celebrities and dignitaries in the 1960s. Barrows worked there for more than 25 years and returned to work after the shooting.
He was very well known at the hotel. He pretty much knew everybody. Everybody knew him.
But could that have included someone who wanted him dead? For Barrows and his family, 1980 was a time of violence, not just because of what happened in Holmes Beach, but because of crime in the city where they lived. Ray Barrows' son was only 19.
You know, Miami was a very violent atmosphere.
And law enforcement had their hands full.
It was hectic times. We got both barrels of the shotgun.
We became the bloody capital of the country.
We got the criminals from Mariel Boat Lift that came in and found the streets paved with gold.
The explosion of the cocaine coming into South Florida.
And we also had the cocaine drug trafficking from Colombia, the infamous cocaine cowboys.
You have to think about all the drug influence that Miami had, and you know, being a bell captain, he was able to do favors for people, and you know, whether that was like somebody that was in with, you know, some kind of shady business, I mean, that's always a possibility.
The Florida Department of Law Enforcement met with Metro-Dade Police Intelligence, but came up empty-handed. However, it wasn't the last time the case would lead them to Miami.
There's a lot of theories out there.
Jay Romine inherited the case and has been the chief of police at Holmes Beach for almost 2 decades.
If you talk to enough people, you're going to get a different one from everybody. A mob hit, an organized crime hit, a drug deal gone bad, a random nut that did it.
Days after the murders, detectives had their first suspect, thanks to the sketch of the killer.
Richard Lee Whitley just kind of appeared out of nowhere. I think it was this one here that a couple in Hyde Park, the west side of downtown Tampa, saw in the newspaper. They called my office and said, look, we have seen this guy whose picture's in the paper.
Whitley had a striking resemblance to the drawing, and after detectives picked him up, they soon learned he was indeed a killer.
Coming up, I-Team investigator Michael George reveals questions about their first prime suspect.
And he was just adamant, no, I didn't do it.
And later, a bizarre twist leading detectives to a notorious mobster.
He had a way of talking about something that would lead one to believe it was the truth.
When our I-Team special investigation continues.